back to America's Game of the Week. Cowboys Stadium, Arlington, Texas. Giants jumped in front thanks to 4 Dallas turnovers, 23-0. We invite you to follow your favorite team all season long. Go to itunes.com/NFL. The Cowboys score the final 10 points of the second quarter. And we'll get the football to begin the second half. Giants lost a season opener to this Dallas team 24-17. They have won 5 of 6 since. Their only loss, a chance to win it at the end, losing in Philadelphia. And a win today, and not only they remaining atop the NFC East, but they would really be in the driver's seat with a very rough schedule looking to the back half of this 2012 season. Tyne spins it away, and Dunbar deep in his own end zone. Thought about it, brings it out. Let's check in downstairs with Pam Oliver.
Well, Tom, talking to Cowboys coach Jason Garrett, he told me that he's pleased with the way the defense is sort of coming along. He feels the offense got some momentum in that half as well. He also told me linebacker Dan Connor that he suffered a stinger and is not looking well. As for the Giants, heard one player say, man, why aren't we blowing these guys out? Tom Coughlin also wondering something too. He's wondering why his wideouts aren't winning those one-on-one matchups.
Pam, thank you. Romo coming out throwing on first down. And Miles Austin will draw a penalty flag on the defender, Prince Amukamara.
He's locked up one-on-one with Miles Austin, and a good release by Austin, and then he tries to get to the outside just enough there with that right arm, and I think Prince Amukamara knew it. You know, we were visiting with Perry Fuel, defensive coordinator, a few weeks ago about Amukamara, and he said, you know, it's time for him to be more consistent and make more plays. I mean, he's not doing enough as a first-round pick. Now, he's had some injuries that we're well aware of, but yeah, he's been very inconsistent, and offenses know that, and they've gone after him.
Kill. 23-30. Bang.
20-yard penalty. Amukamara, you may remember, injury-plagued rookie year. He broke his foot the very first day of training camp after a lengthy holdout. His first game back had an interception against Philadelphia, then lost his confidence, lost his playing time, and after being injured early this year, their general manager Jerry Reese said it's time to play like that #1 pick.
I'll tell you, looking at him right here, he looks like he's out of breath, and the second half just started. You know, I'd be a little concerned about that.
Bang! Billy, 180!
Opposite Kevin Ogletree on this pass play to Bryant, and he got it inside the 30-yard line. He beat Corey Webster.
You know, again, locked up, no safety help, one-on-one, and when Webster turned around, I couldn't tell if he just didn't locate the ball. Des Bryant is going after the ball. There was some contact that was made as Bryant's trying to make a play there on the ball, and it looked like Webster was thinking that there was offensive pass interference, but Romo had an opportunity to work either side. Instead of going against Amukamara, he decides then to take a shot at Corey Webster.
Bring the blitz. Cowboys pick it up, and it's Witten to the 22-yard line. Philip Tanner picking up the blitz that time.
And a lot of the decision making in that depends on really what the route is. With Des Bryant, what Romo likes about him is his physicalness. If he's got a go route with a press corner, as he had there with Corey Webster, that he's going to go up and make a play on the ball. And he did that beautifully on the last play. Whereas if it's more of a precise route, in cuts, out cuts, things of that nature, you know, that's where he feels a little more comfortable with Miles Austin.
180!
And off to Felix Jones, who had a very quiet first half. 8 rushes, only 21 yards for Jones, trying to replace the injured DeMarco Murray.
Well, this has got to be a little bit of a concern right now for Tom Coughlin. I mean, as we said, the Cowboys, I mean, the Giants never delivered the knockout punch. And as Pam's report stated, they're wondering why they haven't blown the Cowboys out. Well, I'll tell you why. They were 1 for 4 in the red zone, coming away with touchdowns. And it keeps a team hanging around, and then the Cowboys started putting it together, and they come out here in the second half and they have a nice drive win.
Incomplete.
Almost past intended for Jason Whitman, complete in the end zone. Second down, 2nd and 10.
Jason Pierre-Paul again all over Romo.
You know, that used to be a penalty there. You know, you come around the helmet at all on a quarterback and that would be called, but now it's got to be considered a forcible blow to the head, and clearly that was not.
Romo slips by 1 tackler and able to maybe pick up a yard.
Romo on the carry.
We've seen, you know, the connection with Romo Witten is really kind of what got Romo going a little bit, and he's trying to work in the middle of the field here because of the coverage. And this time, I mean, Witten's done a nice job of getting open and giving Romo somewhere to go with the ball, and that time, pretty good coverage.
Third down and 10 for the Cowboys. From the 17. Miles Austin, and he spins close to the goal line. And denied the touchdown is Austin, but it's 1st and goal, Dallas.
Take a look and make sure that he did not get in, and he did not. He comes up short of the goal line, and here's the route. He gets turned loose and he gets into that zone. Romo hangs with him and is able to fit the ball in before he gets to the safeties.
Tanner in the I formation with Lawrence Vickers in front of him, and bottled up, was unable to get in.
Philip Tanner on the carry.
Philip Tanner grew up here in Dallas, went to Justin F. Kimball High School, played collegiately at Middle Tennessee State. It'll be the 9th play of his Dallas drive to begin the second half, and without DeMarco Murray, fell behind big to tuck in the Giants, and now a yard away. And a point after away from making it a 6-point spread. Denied the touchdown once more as Tanner. Blackburn able to stop it.
This is a big third down play here. Yeah, I can't help but think back to that Week 1 game when the Giants got the turnover, the interception by Boley, and they got it inside the 5-yard line, got it down to the 1-yard line, and had 3 downs to get it in, and they couldn't. I thought that was a turning point in the game. This could very well be if the Cowboys are unable to come away with a touchdown right here. It'd be very demoralizing for this offense.
They're going to throw it this time. And too tall for James Hanna. Well. Jason Garrett is thinking it over. And it looks like he has already made the decision. He is going for it on 4th and goal.
Well, he shouldn't have had to, because James Hanna is on the back line, and he was just left wide open. And Romo saw him. Initially, it didn't look like Romo was going to spot him, but then he did, and he just was unable to deliver an accurate pass.
Cowboys 3 of 5 on 4th downs this season. They've converted their last 3. And Felix Jones in the backfield. Romo rolling to the end zone. Game on here at Cowboys Stadium. It's a 1-score game.
least Witten up the field, and then because of that, they're able to get Romo on the edge. It was just a one-man route. Romo's either going to throw it to Witten or he's going to keep it for the touchdown. They cover Witten. He gets on the edge. Easy touchdown.
Point after by Bailey is good. Opening possession in the second half. A touchdown for the Cowboys. 23-17 Giants. David Wilson staring right into that sunshine. Waiting on the kick from Dan Bailey. 23-17 Giants get the ball for the first time here in the second half. Wilson up to the 22-yard line. The Cowboys celebrating the touchdown, getting back in this game. Eli and the Giants hoping to stretch it out. 11 plays, 86 yards. 20-yard penalty helped it. A 30-yard pass play to Des Bryant did as well. Now the Giants, first possession here in the third quarter, and wrapped up after a gain of a yard by Anthony Spencer's Ahmad Bradshaw.
I talked about it coming into this game, Tom, that I really believe that for the Giants, now it's even more accurate, that if they're going to win this game, they really have to get more out of the running game than they've had. They've had two good runs in this game. A 14-yarder by Andre Brown and a 12-yarder by Ahmad Bradshaw in the first half. Other than that, they have done nothing on the ground, and the Cowboys, like they did week one, have completely shut the running game down and have still played coverage in doing that.
Broken up. Ernie Sims, they just signed him this week. Former #1 pick out of Florida State by the Lions. Spent 4 years there, a year in Philly, a year in Indy. He's gotten a lot of snaps today.
He has gotten a lot of snaps, and Rob Ryan said he was going to. And so now this is a pretty important third down for the Giants. I mean, with the momentum that the Cowboys have had coming out of the first half to start this second half, 17 unanswered points. Right now, the Giants need to do something.
Only 2 out of 9 on third down. Eli cuts it loose. Batted down. That's Brandon Carr. And it is 3 and out for the Giants. And now the Dallas Cowboys, who look dead in the water through the first quarter of this game, will get the ball with a chance to take the lead.
Well, they are, and because of the coverage I keep talking about is 2 deep safeties and then man coverage underneath. It's a hard coverage to throw the ball against. The Cowboys have been able to run it because the Giants just have not gotten anything going on the ground.
Wayne Harris from the 27. Good return up to the 41-yard line. Romo and the Cowboys getting help from their defense. 6-point game. A disastrous start to this one for Romo. 3 interceptions of his first 15 attempts. None in his last 17.
About the time you suggested they might be getting Kyle Orton ready to go. Romo's gotten hot. He must have heard you.
You're unbelievable. It's the second week in a row now. Kicked in front of the bus. I would expect no less. Pump fake. Backup tight end John Phillips, and that's a gain of 8.
I joke about it, Tom, but this team's going to go as Tony Romo goes, and they're in the early going. He was not going anywhere, and that's why I wondered, what they were thinking. Not certainly suggesting that it's something that they should do, but he's gotten very hot here, as we saw by those numbers, and even the body language by everybody. When they took the field, when we were at commercial timeout, you look at these guys. I mean, they're ready to go. I mean, it's amazing, and I've always said it, how quickly you can regain confidence, and right now this Cowboys unit has it.
Second down and 2, they're going to throw it. And it's Miles Austin. A first down to the 27-yard line.
You know, they play zone coverage, and we've seen him get into this zone already a couple times today. And once you get past that initial coverage, you get into the seam, and the only guy that can make a play on that then is the safety. And you know, if you see that then as the quarterback and you drive the ball in, it's a hard route to defense, and they've been wearing that out.
Gain of 25. Austin up over 100 receiving yards, and Witten to the 20. That'll be a gain of 7. Well, Romo just a moment ago passes the Hall of Famer Roger Staubach for second place on the Cowboys all-time passing list. And guess who's up next?
We'll be passing that one probably sometime next year.
It'll be a while. That would be Troy Aikman, who had over 32,000 passing yards, number 1 all-time in Cowboys history. They pitch it to Jones. He is stuffed. Looked like he had some running room momentarily, but Blackburn, who just continues to play so well for the Giants. Tom Coughlin said after the game last week, he is the most difficult player to take out of my lineup, and he might be forced to take him out right now.
Well, based on his reaction and him pounding the ground, I mean, it looks to me like he believes it's pretty serious.
Chase Blackburn walking along the Giants sideline. It looks like he's on his way to their locker room. 3rd down and 4. First down reception made by Witten at the 15.
They try to give help on the outside to those receivers, Miles Austin and Des Bryant, and so you then have one-on-one with Jason Witten, and that was a concern coming in. You know, for Perry Fuel, how do we handle him? And Michael Boley was on him that time. They try to mix it up a little bit, but that's a pretty good matchup for the Cowboys. Witten, as you talked about earlier, I mean, he's one of the all-time greats at that position.
Witten once more. And he is slammed to the deck at the 1-yard line. 1st and goal Cowboys with a chance to take the lead.
We've seen Romo take some shots, you know, inside, but on this play he has pretty decent protection to where he's able to get the ball out, and a great job of finishing the play by Jason Witten. Boy, you look at the demeanor. I mean, in the first half, it was the Cowboys who were kind of walking around, and now it's the Giants.
Oh, dangerous there. Felix Jones can't get in from the 1-yard line. Of course, that was the gamble by Jason Garrett on the first drive of this second half. 1st down, stuffed. 2nd down, stuffed. 3rd down, open receiver. Romo missed him. But Garrett decided to go on 4th and 1, and Romo, after faking the handoff, rolled to the right, tiptoed into the end zone.
Yeah, so much for being conservative.
Romo will throw it, and it is a touchdown for John Phillips, his first of the year. The Cowboys are a point after away from erasing a 23-0 deficit.
Well, when Romo comes out off the play action, it's 2-on-1. And no matter, it looked like it was Antrell Roll, I couldn't tell exactly, but no matter what he decided to do, he was going to be wrong. Either Romo is going to run it in, or if he comes off of John Phillips, he's going to throw it to him for the touchdown.
I don't know about you. You didn't see this coming in the first quarter. The Cowboys have taken the lead, 24-23. Largest comeback in Dallas team history, 21 points. Most recently in '99 when they had a guy named Aikman at quarterback. Well, they have come back from 23 down here today, but a long way from wrapping this one up. And Wilson brings out the kick to the 23-yard line. And, you know, Troy, look, this place is filled with Dallas Cowboy fans, and a lot of them watching on TV right now. I don't think anybody felt, after a little more than a quarter, that this would transpire.
No, I don't think anybody would have anticipated this. And I'll tell you right now, with the Giants, they better be. I mean, this may be a blowout the other way if they're not careful, because offensively, the Giants have not done anything. I mean, they really have not. They had great field position and just could not get it into the end zone, and that's why the game remained relatively close considering how much damage had been done. But they've done nothing offensively.
Ahmad Bradshaw on first down, good run, and they've had very few of those today.
And I mean, let's credit Rob Ryan and this defense, you know, and they came in with a chip on their shoulder. I mean, all week long, Rob Ryan heard about how the Giants just didn't perform very well in that Week 1 loss, and he was kind of offended by it, to be quite honest with you, that, you know, hey, we had something to do with that. And they came out wanting to prove it again here today. And even though the Giants were able to jump up 23-0, it was no fault of the defense. In fact, it was really a great job by the defense keeping this team in it.
180!
Contact, no flag. Third down upcoming. We invite you to call Star NFL to download NFL Mobile right now and get coverage of every NFL game. And, you know, Troy, while we have a moment, there are so many watching along the eastern seaboard, and our thoughts and prayers to every one of you with Hurricane Sandy and the damage that has been inflicted, potentially more to come. Please get somewhere safe. We're thinking of all of you.
Eli looking right into that sun, too.
Third down, crossing pattern. First time we've called the name Dominic Hickson. And that's a first down close to midfield.
Now you see how most of the field is shaded, but not where Eli Manning was standing. You see, he's trying to just see what the coverage is, having a hard time. But he is able to locate Hickson in a nice design play, getting him underneath the coverage, you know, on the crossing route, and a big first down. I mean, to keep this drive alive and potentially to come away with points, but just to get something positive going offensively for them.
So first down of this second half. And Bradshaw, a gain of close to 5. We'll call it 4 on first down.
You know, remember a couple weeks ago when the Giants went in against the 49ers, really a great run defense, and they did a nice job against them and came back the following week and, you know, ran the ball well. Last week, not so well against the Redskins. And I'm sure after that fumble, Tom Coughlin's hoping that Ahmad Bradshaw starts running angry again like he did after he fumbled against Cleveland and ran for 200 yards.
Yep, that was first carry of the game.
518!
Of course, Bradshaw, a very emotional player, smacked his teammate Victor Cruz on the back of the helmet after a play last week when he felt like Cruz didn't make a good block. It was a 15-yard run. He thought it should have been a touchdown. Had words with his coach, Tom Coughlin, over on the sideline. There's a head smack on Cruz. And then we saw this, saying, "Give me the ball." And Tom Coughlin said, "You get in the huddle."
Yeah, he said get in the huddle, and he wanted him to keep his emotions under control. I think Coughlin would rather see that guy from last week right now.
Another third down, this one 3rd and 2. Manning jarred loose, and is it intercepted? That ball popped into the air and into the arms of Danny McCray. Still waiting on a signal for sure. The officials are talking about it. What a hit by Gerald Sensabaugh on Victor Cruz.
Illegal hit, too. He comes in with the shoulder, just the way that they're coached up. Now, the ball lands on his leg, and Tom, it doesn't look, as best we can tell, it didn't go to the ground.
Nope. That's an interception. They're going to take a look at it as they do after every turnover. But it looked like it hit Sensabaugh on the backside, rolled up his leg, right into the hands of McCray.
Yeah, now I think that however it was ruled on the field is probably what they would stay with, because I don't know if there's a definitive look on it or not. This is probably as good as it gets. I mean, it looked to me like he did have it, and the ball did not touch the ground. But a ball that really kind of got away from Eli a little bit, had he been able to stick it on him with the safety there in the middle of the field, driving on that throw. If Eli had been able to put it on Victor a little bit better, then he's able to protect himself after the catch. But that was going to be a hard play to make for Victor Cruz.
What a hit by Sensabaugh. They do look at it. In fact, they're still looking at it. And now the referee, Scott Green, will walk to the sideline.
The previous play is under review.
That's not a challenge by anybody. That is a rule in the NFL this year. They did it after scoring plays last year. This year, they are reviewing every turnover play.
Well, I think that's smart that they do that, so you don't have to burn a challenge in order to review, when there is a change of possession. And they're going to do everything they can to make sure they get this one right. I mean, the Giants had started to get some momentum going. They picked up a first down. That would have been a first down as well. And pretty good job there by McCray. One, securing the ball with the interception, but then getting up and getting yardage off of it. Now, I think that's something worth looking at, too. If there's contact when he's on the ground, then the ball comes back.
Well, he was already on his feet, it appeared, by the time Cruz touched him, and that was a 22-yard return.
I think the question is, whether or not he was touched when he was on the ground. And that's probably what they're reviewing. I don't think there's enough there to overturn anything. But we'll take a look and see if there was contact made with Cruz at the time that he secures the ball. And Cruz's right leg might have got him while he was still on the ground.
Scoreboard, video board they have hanging over the middle of this field that runs from 120 to the other 20. It is spectacular to see it in person. It's almost beyond description, but I'm not sure standing on a sideline if you can see anything looking straight up. Saw Jason Garrett start to look up and said, "Now,
just go put your nose on that flat screen at home, and then that'd be about what it's like looking up for these coaches."
After reviewing the play, it was a valid interception. However, the interceptor was touched by the receiver's foot. The ball will be placed on the 35-yard line. First down for Dallas. Please reset the game clock to 54 seconds. 54 seconds.
So as you pointed out, Troy, it looked like the foot of Cruz may have made the contact.
Well, obviously disappointing there for the Giants offensively, not being able to maintain possession and keep the ball. But now it's up to this defense and them trying to make a stop and get the momentum going back in their favor, and something they've been unable to do on the last several possessions.
Rolling on first down is Romo, and there is Chris Canty once more. Canty has had an outstanding game.
He really has. He's got inside pressure, and this time he's going to loop all the way around to get to Romo. See the move that he makes there, and they bring Jason Pierre-Paul inside, but Chris Canty, who was inactive for the early part of this season, he was put on the PUP list, but he just came back a couple weeks ago, and he's had a nice game. Now, he started his career here with Dallas, and so I'm sure he's pretty incentivized to come out here and play well in Dallas.
That's been his first 4 years here with the Cowboys as a starter. The loss of 12 blitz coming again, and Romo just does get it away. Huge pressure. First time we've called the name Justin Tuck the entire afternoon.
Yeah, Romo, he's trying to, trying to get a call on Felix Jones, saying that Michael Boley, who read it beautifully, he comes through and then he tackles. There was clearly contact made on the screen. It was behind the line of scrimmage. You're going to see as Felix Jones is trying to make a catch here, Boley comes in and just took him out.
Third down, third and 22 Cowboys. 43.
Need to get to the 45-yard line for a first down. Tucker got his first sack last week against the Redskins. And it's Tanner caught from behind. How about Pierre Paul running down Tanner in the open field? End of the quarter. Cowboys have taken the lead. We'll return after these messages and a word from your local Fox station. Back to America's Game of the Week here on Fox. It didn't look like it was going to be much of a game when we got underway. The Giants out to a 23-0 lead. Cowboys have scored 24 unanswered. And now we begin the final stanza here at Cowboys Stadium. As Mormon gets it away, and Randall will pick it up at the 14-yard line. And he'll be tackled right there. Bring you up to date on some injury news along the Giants sideline. How about it, Pam Oliver?
Well, Tom, the Giants defense will try to stop that Cowboys offense without their starting middle linebacker. Chase Blackburn has a hamstring injury to his left leg, and he is done for the day. Meantime, I saw Justin Tuck get worked on by a team doctor. They were checking out his neck and also testing his extremities, but he's been back in since.
Well, Tuck nearly had a sack a moment ago. Pam, thanks so much. Fourth quarter has belonged to the Giants this season. Now they have really labored over these last 6 possessions, but make no mistake, when it comes to the fourth quarter, that is when Eli Manning is perhaps better than any other quarterback in the league. And a first down throw and a first down catch all the way up to the 45 for Nix.
Just a beautiful throw by Eli Manning, and they're going to run the quick post route, and this is the guy here you've got to navigate. You throw it right off the back of his helmet. He's trying to get underneath the throw. It was Gerald Sensabaugh, and Akeem Nicks runs a nice route, but that guy can't get underneath that throw. And Buddy Ryan used to try to do that all the time and get that guy underneath the throw. It just doesn't work, and Rob Ryan, obviously, that's where he got it from.
First down, what a catch made by Randall, and that'll be a first down to the 44-yard line. And here we begin the fourth quarter, and here we go with Eli Manning.
Yeah, I mean, for as much as they have struggled offensively, now they did get it going on the previous possession, started to get some completions, but you called it. Fourth quarter starts, and off Eli Manning goes.
Well, she had 15 fourth quarter touchdowns, an NFL record last year. Bradshaw for a gain of close to 4.
You can just tell that the Giants are starting to sense the urgency of this right now. You know, and the defense was able to make a big stop, something they had been having troubles doing against the Dallas offense, and now the Giants are, you know, they're playing with a little more urgency. They get the 2 completions and a nice run there on that last play of 4 yards.
To a receiver any better than that. That's a first down catch for Nix.
That had to be perfect, Tom, because Morris Claiborne was in perfect position. This is a long throw. I mean, he was driving on that ball, and anything less than perfect on the outside. It looked to me like he drug his right foot. I think that was a good call as far as a completion.
Well, they get off the play before there can be a challenge, and Bradshaw to the 29, a penalty flag is thrown. This will be against the Giants.
Holding, offense number 65. 10-yard penalty, first down.
You know, there's so many areas. There's a reason why the Giants are 5-2. I mean, obviously, their offense, their defense, their special teams, but they are a mistake-free football team. They've only allowed 5 sacks, second fewest penalties. They've only turned it over 9 times. This is a solid group.
No, it is. I mean, that's why they're 5-2 coming in. But that was they picked a bad time to come down with one now to start this possession here, or this drive here at 1st and 20.
Manning going to run it. And he gets about 3 yards back, caught from behind by Ratliff. Well, Ratliff in his 8th year, but he is still so athletic for such a huge man. 6'4", 303 pounds.
The guy who filled his spot when he missed those first 4 games, Josh Brent. He's a heck of a player, too. He's more of the traditional 3-4 nose tackle. Jay Ratliff, he's, as you said, he's a more athletic guy, can do some different things. Not the big 350-pounder you see in a lot of these other places.
Shot down after making the catch is Bennett, so it brings up a 3rd down and 5.
Well, it makes it a manageable 3rd down, but it also at least puts them in position if they want to try to kick a field goal here. They're now in field goal range. So that was a big completion there. And, of course, they want to come away with points, but you wonder if they would go for it on 4th down if they get anywhere close, if they just come up short. If they would, then that affects what you do here on 3rd down. But my guess is that Coughlin would go ahead and elect to kick and then try to take the lead.
Manning 4 of 4 on this drive, make it 5 out of 5, but that's not enough for a 1st down on a catch to Hickson. And Tom Coughlin says, Lawrence Tynes, make your way out on the field.
This shouldn't have been that hard. You're going to see him come across the middle, and there was no reason really for him not to push that up the field more so that when he caught the ball, he immediately has the 1st down. You can't always do that. You don't have the freedom to do whatever you want, but considering what they had there, that to me should have been completed for a 1st down.
43-yard field goal try to take the lead. And it is good.
Lawrence Tynes 43-yard field goal against the Giants.
So the Giants answer and have recaptured the lead with 10:20 to go. Look at Cowboys Stadium here in Arlington, Texas. 10:20 to play. Giants 26, Cowboys 24. 8 plays, 60 yards. Manning perfect, 5 of 5. Dunbar again, deep in his own end zone, will bring it out. And he's up to the 22-yard line. Tynes his 4th field goal of the afternoon. Puts the Giants back in front. Welcome many of you joining us from around the country. New York Giants open this game with a 23-0 lead. The Cowboys turned it over 4 times in the first quarter plus. Dallas chalks up 24 unanswered points before the Giants just kicked a field goal, the 4th of the day by Lawrence Tynes, to recapture the lead. Here we are with 10:13 to go.
Defense number 91, 5-yard penalty. Still 1st.
Of the 4 turnovers early, Romo threw 3 interceptions, but the Giants were unable to deliver that knockout punch, settling for field goals rather than touchdowns, enabling Dallas to stay relatively close. Scored 10 points leading up to halftime. As a carry off to the left side is Felix Jones on a 1st and 5, and he picks up a yard.
We wondered coming in, how much the Cowboys would miss DeMarco Murray, and you know, so far the evidence shows that they've missed him a great deal, because Felix Jones really has not been able to get going, and they've not run the football very effectively. And the Cowboys really felt coming in that that was going to be a key for them if they were going to be able to have much success, but it has all been on the right arm of Romo.
Through the hands of Des Bryant.
Good coverage there by Corey Webster, but you know, a ball that Des Bryant has a chance to make, and Romo lays it out on the sideline, and Des just not able to get out of the break quickly enough to get the ball and secure the catch.
3rd and 4, Cowboys 4 and 10 on 3rd down today. You see the numbers for Romo. 4-man rush, good protection. Catch this time is made by Bryant. That's the first down. Or is it? Didn't look like he got a favorable spot there. And Scott Green says we're going to take a look. You can read the lips of Jason Garrett. He said, I can't believe his spot.
Yeah, you can see where the knee was down, the ball was beyond the first down, and you know, it's a first down anyway. So yeah, it was a less than favorable spot, but you know, still good enough. And they come right back to that same route on the outside to Des Bryant against Webster. I talk about it a lot. You know, that inside pressure is what's, you know, can really affect the quarterback. And it's one thing when you got guys screaming off the edge, but as long as you can, you know, that rushes your throws, but as long as you can step up in the pocket, you feel pretty good about it. But when you start having guys hitting you as you're stepping into throws, that impacts then how long you're willing to hang in there for guys to get open.
Blitz coming. Romo delivers. Caught by Witten, and that's up to the 38-yard line. That'll be a gain of 5 on first down. Join the NFL and the American Cancer Society in the fight against breast cancer by supporting a crucial catch campaign. Visit NFL.com/auction to bid right now on authentic NFL pink gear worn by players and coaches. We have been celebrating Breast Cancer Awareness Month here in the NFL.
Yeah, and I want to thank the NFL and all these players that are out here on the field wearing pink. As someone who has a mom who's a breast cancer survivor, I know how tough that illness can be, and so many women have been affected by it. It's a great job by the NFL and these players.
Indeed. Romo sacked Linval Joseph. He had a big strip on a sack to force a Washington turnover last week. Boy, he's become a force for the Giants.
Yeah, Linval Joseph, I mean, he's gotten the inside pressure, but you know, here's Justin Tuck, and you know, this is what Doug Free, the right tackle, can struggle with at times. You know, when you get the bull rush and a physical, strong guy that he's got to then try to hold up. Tuck, as he gets pressure, he forces Romo inside, and then Linval Joseph. I mean, I've been impressed with what I've seen from Linval Joseph in all the games we've had.
It's coming again, 3rd and 5, and again the Cowboys deliver. Romo to Austin, he beat Hosley, and that's at midfield.
You know, in a lot of ways, that's what football comes down to, is who's going to win on 3rd down. You know, who's going to be able to get off the field and which offense is going to convert and keep drives alive. And the Cowboys did not start out very well, but they have been able to convert pretty well here on 3rd down.
2 big 3rd down conversions on this drive. Austin up over 100, Witten up over 100 receiving yards. Bryant's knocking on the door. Little delay. And that did not fool anybody. Ball is loose. Is that Stevie Brown again?
Who else would it be?
It is. Huge turnover by the Cowboys, their 5th of the game.
See Felix Jones. He comes in, he's loose with the ball. The ball is hanging loose down low, and he runs right into the back of Ryan Cook, and the ball comes out.
Fire gang hanging around back in Los Angeles waiting for the OT, and then we'll get you to World Series Game 4 in Detroit. But still 6:40 to go here, and the Giants, after the turnover, give it to Bradshaw. That's a gain of 8 on the first down.
Now we'll go back and take a look at the fumble, and you see Felix Jones. He has the ball. He's trying to secure it. As he then goes to put it in one arm, he drops it down, and he runs into the back of Ryan Cook. Ball just comes out. I mean, that should not happen. And he's got to be better with securing the football. And Stevie Brown, he tried to pick it up initially on the move, and he might score if he picks it up cleanly. And almost lost an opportunity to even get the change of possession, but he was then wisely able to fall on it.
Bradshaw, a first down and more for the 26-yard line. And speaking of the World Series, Kurt Menefee has more on what's coming up.
Well, you mentioned it. Game 4 of the World Series comes up in just a bit. Miguel Cabrera and the Tigers shut out twice during the regular season, but Pablo Sandoval and the Giants have shut them out the last 2 games here in the World Series. Game 4 comes up 8 o'clock Eastern time. Tom?
Thank you. First down, Giants. Bradshaw. Back to the line of scrimmage, 2nd and 9. Clock under 5.5 to go.
Well, some of the tough running, that they were unable to get through much of this game. They didn't get anything on that run, but we're starting to see some things pop a little bit and get some of the running game going that they struggled so much with. And that's taken then, one, it takes time off the clock, and it takes a lot of the pressure off of Eli Manning.
Bradshaw dives forward and gets to the 21-yard line. Big play coming up here. 3rd down, closing in on 4.5 to go. The Giants score a touchdown. You never say never, but you're in a world of trouble if you're the Cowboys.
Well, I mean, just think about even if they get a first down and still have to ultimately kick a field goal, It's a 1-possession game. And just think of the amount of time that comes off the clock. And so this is a big 3rd down for Dallas right here.
Hey, you got nothing. We're this one.
Catch short of the first down is Hickson.
Yeah, and that's one that Eli Manning would like to have back, because Hickson was out there in the flat all by himself, and it was just a ball that was poorly thrown. And so Hickson not able to catch the ball and stay on the move. Had he been able to do that, then he picks up that first down probably pretty easily.
So now Tynes on for what would be his 5th field goal of the day. He's hit from 41, 37, 36, and 43. He's among the best in the game, Lawrence Tynes. The fumble by Jones as the Cowboys were on the move. Leads to 3, and now the Cowboys need a touchdown. Bring up the speed as we have 3:31 left. Giants only 23 points off of 5 Dallas turnovers. Cowboys 24 unanswered points after falling behind 23-0. Giants trying to go 4-0 here at Cowboys Stadium. They played in the very first game. Lawrence Tynes kicking a 37-yard field goal as time expired in a 33-31 win. And now it's Lance Dunbar trying to turn the corner, flag down. He is tackled at the 22-yard line.
We got several flags thrown.
We had one along the sideline. You had another thrown basically in the middle of the field. And the officials are huddled at the 20-yard line.
All right, there are 2 fouls on the play. Holding, receiving team, number 27, illegal hands to the face, number 58, on the kicking team. By rule, will be spotted at the end of the run, first down.
So there's a hold on Frampton. And then Herzlich, hands to the face.
Yeah, I'd say that's hands to the face. Wow. Well, we'll see what happens here. You know, we talk a lot about Eli Manning and what he's been able to do in the fourth quarters, and he's done it on the biggest stage of them all. And you know, now's a chance for Tony Romo. You know, with all 3 timeouts and over 3 minutes to play, and they need a touchdown, and you'll see what he's able to do.
14 fourth quarter comebacks in his career. First catch today by Kevin Ogletree, who had the monster game in week 1. 8 catches, 114 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and a flag down on the play. Both teams are pointing at the other.
Illegal contact, defense, number 28, 5-yard penalty, first down.
Yeah, this is not even where Romo was looking, but I saw this when it happened. I mean, a lot of contact at the top, and that's where the flag came in on Hosley. You know, again, it didn't affect what Romo was doing. He was working the other side of the field the entire way.
Giants blitz. What about the catch from Witten? Oh, goodness. Man, is he something.
Pretty good. Pretty good for a guy who was getting criticized early in the year for drops. You know, and then he makes a catch like that.
He is something.
Well, he's just an absolute professional in every sense of the word. He's a great teammate, he's a great leader, and he's a great player.
And we mentioned probably he's on pace right now, 3 weeks from now, to break the Cowboys' all-time franchise record held by Michael Irvin for career reception. He might get there today. That'll be a gain of 9. He's run out of bounds. That's Witten's 13th catch of the afternoon. 122 receiving yards.
Well, I said it coming in that it's been kind of feast or famine for Jason Witten against the New York Giants. He either has a really big game or he doesn't really do much to impact the outcome, and this is a pretty big game.
Missed 1 game in his career with a broken jaw. Number 14 and a first down to the 45.
Well, give Perry Fuel credit. Defensive coordinator, this time he puts Michael Coe on him. You know, so they're going to try to play him really with a safety over the top and let Coe work him underneath, and yet he's still able to get open. And they've tried a lot of different coverages against him, and so far just nothing's been real effective.
Romo on first down. Off the fingertips of Bryant. We talked about the injury to Chase Blackburn earlier. Keith Rivers limped off a moment ago. We're down to the final 2 minutes. America's game of the week, and it's been a good one. And on that last incompleted pass, Antrell Roll went for the knockout punch on Bryant and was injured on the play.
He came flying across there, and I'm not sure how Antrell Roll missed him, but had he have hit him, you know, that would have been called, you know, a penalty on him for a hit on a defenseless receiver.
Roll able to walk off at the 45-yard line. 1:59 to go, and dropped back at the 45 as a flag comes in late. Romo wrapped up by Justin Tuck. But we do have a flag, and this might be against the Giants for holding in the secondary.
Holding. Defense. Number 28. 5-yard penalty. First down.
Well, that's J-Ron Hosley once again, and it's against Miles Austin is who he's locked up with, and he just gets turned around, and then he starts grabbing, and that's what they call. You know, and Justin Tuck, he had done a great job of getting pressure inside and making the play on Romo.
That's a huge call. Austin to the 28. Of course, you're down 5. Field goal is not going to help you. Can Romo get the Cowboys into the end zone?
Yeah, they got Miles Austin, and he hooks up, and then Romo had to navigate the umpire there in the middle of the field. But you can see how slippery Romo can get.
Minute 28 to go. Romo to Whitten. That is his 15th catch.
Well, they've worn that route out. I mean, they've thrown that one over and over and over. And you get inside leverage by the defender, and you run the out route, and then you just got to make a good throw, and that's what Romo's been able to do time and time again.
Whitten ties a career high with his 15th catch, 139 yards, a gain of 9. And just inside the 20. And a minute 23 to go. Cowboys have all 3 timeouts remaining. Blitz coming, and there may have been movement. Or was a timeout called by the Giants?
Yeah, I think it came from the sideline. Tom Coughlin ran down there to the line judge and was able to get the timeout called. There's Tom Coughlin going down the sideline, and I'm not sure exactly what happened, but he's communicating with someone upstairs who didn't like something that he saw on the defensive alignment or what Dallas was showing offensively.
Started early and started ugly. 23-0. Interception returned for a touchdown for the Cowboys. Scored the final 10 points of the first half. Took the lead. Giants got a fumble recovery, extending their lead to where it is now at 5. And here we are with a minute 23 to go. Romo trying to engineer the 15th fourth quarter comeback of his career. Talked about it earlier. Among the most, if not the most polarizing quarterback in the entire NFL. Couldn't hang on this time. And hopefully our technician, audio technician along the sideline down there is okay.
Third down, 31. At the New York 19.
Coming up next, the OT presented by Lowe's, and then on to Joe Buck, Tim McCarver and company for Game 4 of the World Series. Giants leading 3 games to none.
The Cowboys obviously trying to do all they can to come away with a touchdown. They don't want to leave any time, though, on the clock to do it. You give the ball back to Eli Manning with a chance to come back himself.
Off the fingertips of Ogletree. And a flag comes in late.
We'll see what they're going to call here, but from what I could tell, it looked to me like Prince Amukamara played that ball about as well as you could play it. You can see here on the outside, and the initial contact, it looks like there's more contact given by Ogletree.
Fourth down.
No foul.
Yeah, I thought that was textbook coverage by Amukamara. You know, the contact initially there off the line of scrimmage was initiated by Ogletree, and then at the end, there was the normal contact that takes place. I think they did a good job of picking that up. Now, here we are at 4th and 1.
1 for 1 today on 4th down. That was on the quarterback keeper by Romo. from the 1-yard line. Romo rolling, in trouble. Throws, and it's intercepted. And who else would it be? A penalty flag is down. Stevie Brown comes up with his 3rd turnover of the game. But again, we wait on a penalty.
Holding offense. Number 68. Penalty is declined. First down.
So the Giants get the football on the 6th Dallas turnover of the game, the 4th interception thrown by Tony Romo.
There for a minute, it looked like Romo was going to get outside the pocket. It looked like Romo was going to get outside the pocket, and you're going to see Linval Joseph, who peels back and gives enough color to keep Romo from feeling like he can scramble to the outside. And then once Romo started retreating, he's in no man's land there. He's just now trying to throw it up and give his team a chance to make a play. But give that defensive front credit for the pressure, and specifically Linval Joseph. Even though Romo probably outruns him, I think he sees color flash, and he doesn't think he can beat him to the outside.
So now the Giants trying to protect the football and put this one on ice. Cowboys started the game turning it over, and on their last 2 drives, they turn it over. The fumble by Felix Jones when all they needed was a field goal to go back in front, and now needing the touchdown on a 4th and 1, an interception.
Well, I won't even count the last interception because that one had to be thrown up. But let's just say they had 6 turnovers in the game. Let's just say 5. You don't win games in the NFL with 5 turnovers. I mean, the Cowboys had a chance to come back and win this game. Tom Coughlin's still asking himself, how did it happen? I know. But the Cowboys didn't play well enough offensively to win this game. Defensively, I thought Rob Ryan came in with a nice game plan, and those guys played awfully well there. But offensively, just you can't spot a good football team like the Giants, 23 points, and overcome it.
Bradshaw, as the Cowboys will spend their 2nd timeout. Turnover after turnover after turnover in the first 18 minutes of the game. 3 interceptions, a fumble punt by Des Bryant, but they hung in there. Interception returned for a touchdown by Pierre Paul. 2 drives ago, a Jones fumble running into his own man, and then the interception, 2nd of the game by Stevie Brown.
Well, you know, people ask, you know, how can the Cowboys be now 3-4? They've got a top 10 offense, a top 10 defense. And the reason is because they turn the ball over on offense and they don't create enough takeaways on defense. And then they beat themselves. And the Giants were not excused in that area in this game either. But that's something overall, as we've talked about, the Giants don't do. They don't turn the ball over. They're not penalized. They don't beat themselves. And that's why they're walking out of here once again from Cowboy Stadium with a victory.
Now they're still waiting on the spot of this ball to see whether or not Bradshaw got the first down. If he does, the game's basically over. If he doesn't, and it doesn't appear as though he got there, it'll bring up a 4th down. Weatherford is already on the field, and Des Bryant is already standing back in his own 30-yard line. And if you're wondering, Steve Weatherford, his entire NFL career, 472 punts, has never had a punt blocked. I know what Des Bryant's doing. Ran from his 30 and sprinted all the way back to midfield. Cowboys are coming after this thing. Booming punt by Weatherford. And just kicks it out of bounds. Well, the Cowboys with a fighting chance, although they're out of timeouts. 44 seconds remain. Told you the Giants won the first ever game in this stadium. 2009 and 2010, Michael Boley knocked out Tony Romo, fracturing his clavicle in a 41-35 win. And then the miracle last year, Giants rallied from 12 down in the final 5.5 minutes to win 37-34. Of course, Jerry Jones had made the comment before the season started about fans come on down to Cowboy Stadium and watch the Cowboys kick some giant tail. Well, they beat them in the opener in the Meadowlands. And 44 seconds away from a season split. Incomplete.
Yeah, it's interesting to see then how the Giants are going to play this defensively, and playing pretty soft on that particular coverage. Initially, it looked like they might come up and challenge them, and I was a little surprised to see it, but then they were just disguising the look. Came off of that with 4 guys across deep, and then trying to just rally and come up and make a tackle. Obviously, they want to not allow the Cowboys to catch it and get out of bounds and keep the clock running.
Down the middle of the field, Witten, career high 16 catch. Clock continues to run. 16 catches is a Cowboy single game record. Spiked it with 25 seconds left.
Second and 10, Cowboys at the 43.
Coming up, the OT presented by Lowe's in Game 4 of the World Series. And for so many of you, once more, we're thinking of you along the eastern seaboard of the United States with Hurricane Sandy. Giants will be flying back into that, or at least into that vicinity after the game here today. Romo fires, and it's caught at the 41-yard line by Des Bryant. 19 seconds left in the game.
Well, they're going to keep it interesting because now they're in a position to where they can get the ball into the end zone. So even if they don't get any more yardage here on the next play or two, they're in a shot to where they can throw a Hail Mary and have this thing come down to the last play.
Dandy Don Meredith was the quarterback. November 10th, 63, the last time the Cowboys had 3 receivers with 100 or more yards in a game, which they have today in Witten, Austin, and Bryant. Tackling 5 more. 17th catch, and we mentioned that is a Cowboys single game record for the guy who, really it might only be 2 weeks from now, will become the franchise leader all time for receptions. He came into this game just 21 catches behind Michael Irvin. Romo going to throw it to the end zone. And it is a miracle touchdown for Bryant.
As he's coming down, looks like it lands on the line. It looked like it was going to be close the entire way as to whether or not he was in bounds. The hand hits on the back line before any other part of his body touches down. Stevie Brown was in position to make a play on that ball. He never gets over the top, and so what looked to be a touchdown now looks like it's coming back.
The previous play is under review.
They're taking a look. Is it a touchdown? Is it not a touchdown? How about it, Mike Pereira?
Oh, what a huge play in high definition television. To me, the fingers are out of bounds. I think they've got to reverse this to an incomplete pass. Still will have another play, but watch the fingers touch here. As you zoom in and take a look, you can actually see hand touching there, fingers touching. That's the first thing that touch. To me, that makes the pass incomplete.
After reviewing the play, the receiver's hand touched out of bounds prior to him gaining possession of the ball. The pass is incomplete. It is 3rd down and 5 on the 37 with 6 seconds on the clock.
Let's first show how he got up open. He runs a double move, and Webster bites on it, which I'm not sure why he did that. But then it looked like Stevie Brown coming over the top as the middle safety had a chance to make a play on the ball as well. None of that happened. Des Bryant's able to make the catch, but you see, I mean, had he have hit down before his hand hits, it's a touchdown, and that's how close it was. Now, as Mike Pereira said, I mean, there's still 6 seconds left on the clock. They've got one more shot at throwing this into the end zone.
And Des Bryant's finding his helmet. And telling somebody, Dwayne Harris, to get to the sideline. So the call on the field was a touchdown. Bryant is having to walk off. He was injured on the play. Landed very hard on his hip.
Cowboys at the 37.
Of course, he already had a groin injury last week against Carolina. 6 seconds remain.
Romo spending a lot of time in the huddle talking about this, so you wonder if they're going to try to do something a little different than just throwing a Hail Mary with everybody streaking down the field.
Well, it was a correct call.
Please reset the game clock to 10 seconds.
It was the right call. Hand comes down, fingers out of bounds before his backside landed clearly in the end zone. So the replay officials got it right. So they add 4 seconds to the clock.
Well, the Giants, they want to talk about it themselves. They just called a timeout to talk about it. They've got the whole defense coming over to the sidelines.
I think Tom Coughlin is still a little bit upset about that spot. Going back to the handoff to Ahmad Bradshaw on a 3rd down call that he thought had plenty enough to get the 1st down, which forced the Giants to have to punt it back to the Cowboys on this drive. He was livid on the sideline. But were it not, they say it's a game of inches, and it might be the oldest cliche in the book, but if there's ever an example, it's where those fingers landed in the back of the end zone of Des Bryant. The second bend of your fingers. Still a shot. They get a little closer as Witten tiptoes out of bounds at the 28-yard line. Well, now's your shot in the end zone.
Well, now's their shot, and now they can run a more designed play. As opposed to just throwing it up, they can try to run a play that they've practiced on from the 27-yard line. See if this front, they'll rush 3, whether or not the Giants will be able to get any kind of pressure on Romo.
And Bryant still injured over on the sideline. And here we go. Romo steps up, throws, and through the fingertips of Austin, there's a second remaining. Perhaps a break. I'm not sure if Austin makes that catch if he's not going to come down short of the goal line.
Yeah, it sure looked like if this ball was thrown lower and he catches it, that Webster's there, and then along with Stevie Brown, that they more than likely make the play before he's able to get into the end zone. So you're probably right on that, and we keep thinking we're coming down to the last play, and now here it is.
Des Bryant has come back in. Final play of the game, and timeout is called by the Giants. You know, Troy, I think most people say, okay, you know, everybody and his brother knows you got to throw the ball to the end zone here. So if you're Jason Garrett, are there plays you work on to try and fool somebody, I guess for lack of a better word, to try to find a way to indeed get the ball in the end zone on the final play of the game?
Absolutely they do, and as we just saw on that last play, you know, as simple as it sounds, from the 27-yard line, they have a shot to hit Miles Austin in the seam, and it's going to take some sure tackling to keep him out of the end zone. I mean, they're not going to line 8 guys up along the goal line, and so you've got the pass rush, you've got guys that are playing somewhat underneath, and you've got 4 deep. You've got 4 deep guys that are then trying to make a play on it.
Three-man rush. Romo throws, and that's going to do it. The New York Giants go to 4-0 here at Cowboys Stadium, and they are 6-2 in command of the NFC East. A spectacular game for Witten, but Tom Coughlin's Giants win it 29